All right, everybody, welcome back to Conflicts of Interest. We have a bonus episode today. We are talking Defend the Guard, and this time I have Proulx joining me. He is a New Hampshire native and a veteran of the New Hampshire Army National Guard, where he served 6 years in the Bravo Battery 197th Field Artillery as a HIMARS crew chief. Currently, Derek is the Grassroots Engagement Director for Young Americans for Prosperity in New Hampshire, a national liberty grassroots political organization outside of AFP. Derek also volunteers for several New Hampshire liberty organizations, including the Free State Project, and we actually met this summer at the Free State Project's big Port Fest event in New Hampshire. That was absolutely fantastic. I had a great time there. And then he's also with Defend the Guard, which is what we will be talking about today. So, Derek, I guess let's just start. Tell my audience a little bit about yourself. This is the first time you've been on the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Kyle. Yeah, I'm from New Hampshire, born and raised. Been here my whole life. Did 6 years in the New Hampshire Guard. No combat tours or anything like that. Did go to Europe, Slovenia, Hungary. And yeah, I was a HIMARS crew member. Started off driving those things, then as a gunner, and then moving up to the crew chief position. So I was in the New Hampshire Guard for 6 years. And then after that, I got out in 2022, last year, and pretty much like most people, got politically involved after 2020, going through the whole lockdowns and everything like that. Just didn't really like the way things were going, especially just government acting completely out of control. So I just started getting politically active, started volunteering a lot, local GOP groups as well as the Liberty space in New Hampshire. That's where I kind of got connected with the Free State Project. Kind of always knew about them, but never really knew what they were about, and found out that they were really my people. And then through just being involved with Liberty in New Hampshire, volunteering with different groups, I started working for Americans for Prosperity. That's my full-time job, which is, a dream for every liberty lover, is to do the whole liberty activism thing full-time. And then, through all these liberty connections, that's where I met some of the Bringer Troops Homes guys, like Diego Rivera, Hunter, Dan McKnight. And so from there, that's where, I really started getting involved in the whole Defend the Guard experience and movement.
I guess I should just clarify that when we're talking about Hunter, that's Hunter DeRensis, who is also an editor at the Libertarian Institute, so one of my coworkers over there. All right, and Hunter's been on the show in the past, as well as Michael Maharry, as I mentioned, and has done like a thorough breakdown of Defend the Guard, and if anybody's interested in some of the philosophy behind it, and stuff like, the constitutional issues and all of that, you could go and listen to those interviews. But Derek, can you just give us like a short rundown of what Defend the Guard is for anybody who either isn't familiar or only vaguely remembers those shows?
Yeah, so Defend the Guard simply would prevent, it's past the state level, and it would prevent the state's National Guard from being deployed to overseas combat unless Congress does its job like it says to do in the Constitution and declares war first, which we haven't done in 81 years.
All right, perfect. So, there's a lot going on with Defend the Guard, and usually when I have people on to talk about it, we're talking, very general what's going on nationally with Defend the Guard. But I want to bring you on because New Hampshire is having some success, I understand, and so kind of catch us up on what's happening. I know I have quite a few people who live in New Hampshire, who live in New Hampshire, who listen to this show. But anybody, like, let's hear about some successes going on for the cause of liberty and non-interventionism.
Yeah, so Defend the Guard has only been around, as a movement for the last couple of years, 3 years ish. And when it was first introduced in New Hampshire, It just didn't really have much grassroots support. There was a few, Liberty legislators who picked it up. They didn't really know too much about the, nitty gritty details of the bill. They just thought it was, a good bill. And so they submitted it, and it failed horribly in committee, lost 14-2 in committee. And so from there, just my involvement, I found out about the project, and I wanted to help out with this, specific bill, especially since I think, United States foreign intervention has become one of my top issues in terms of being a liberty activist. I think, just speaking with being in the Guard, experiencing all those, the things that we saw through the military, the bureaucratic waste, as well as a lot of the trauma from fellow veterans. And then of course, actually reading the consequences of some of our interventions, that we've done to civilian populations overseas, to just an issue that really hits home with me. So I just started getting involved in Defend the Guard in kind of mid 2022. Well, no, early 2022. And from there, I kind of just became the lead activist. There wasn't really like a lead activist. It was just legislators picking up the bill. So I just really started, really pushing some grassroots support. I started, speaking at different events, at PorkFest, and just trying to become a subject matter expert on that. And then when bill filing season in 2022 came along, after the elections, we knew who was going to be filing, who's going to be elected. I was kind of searching around for some state reps that could submit this bill for me. Some made it past the finish line in 2022, some didn't. But I made a really strong team, a bipartisan team of New Hampshire state reps for the bill filing period in December of 2022, all of which are veterans. So it's our prime sponsors, Tom Patusik from Derry, New Hampshire. He's an Air Force veteran. He's been in the State House for a very long time, very highly respected as a legislator. So I made sure to grab him as our prime sponsor. He's, a Vietnam veteran who's really into this bill. And then I got a Democrat who's a Marine Corps veteran, Josh Adjutant, who is the Democrat House floor whip. So he's part of Democrat leadership, and he wanted to get involved with this bill. One of our biggest fighters, who's actually on the committee that this bill was sent to, Tom Mannion from Pelham, another Marine Corps veteran. Tom is an amazing activist. He's, moved from Massachusetts to New Hampshire for more freedom and liberty. So he kind of gets the whole idea of, we need to make sure that we secure liberty for New Hampshire. And he's just a great guy overall, really passionate about this project, and became a subject matter expert with it along with me. Matt Sanastasso from Jaffrey Ringe, New Hampshire, 82nd Airborne Combat Medic. Matt is, as libertarian as it gets. I think he submitted a bill for New Hampshire to become an independent country. So he's very involved in the whole, libertarian sphere, really wants to get New Hampshire specifically away from a lot of our foreign interventions. And then we've got Michael Granger from Milton, New Hampshire, a Texas, New Hampshire National Guard veteran, Army National Guard. So that's the team that we built, all veterans, bipartisan. And we started getting together, doing the research. The Bring Your Troops Home team, they built a legislators packet, made sure that all the legislators got that packet. Like I said, the team calls, make sure everyone understood the material. And then we had our committee hearing in January 2023, so January beginning this year. We were going to have a lot more people than we ended up having because of, there's a snowstorm, kept some people away, but we still managed to round up like 25 people to show up and testify for this bill, most of which were veterans. And there were only two there who were opposed to the bill, one being from the TAG's office. You had the deputy TAG there. And then you also had a representative from the State Veterans Advisory Committee. And the weird thing about the State Veterans Advisory Committee in New Hampshire was that it was originally built to, be a committee to represent the voice of veterans in New Hampshire. But for some reason, I think it was 2018, the SVAC, the State Veterans Advisory Committee, was rolled under the Department of Veterans and Military Affairs for New Hampshire. So it's basically having like the VA being under the DoD. So they kind of caused a lot of red flags there, being like probably some conflicts of interest with their being involvement in opposition to this bill. But it was just two people who showed up against it, and we had massive support. We did a really great job. I highly recommend watching the January committee hearing on Defend the Guard in New Hampshire, because there's some really powerful testimonies in there. People knew their stuff. One thing that we did notice is that the opposition didn't change their arguments from the previous year. They said the same exact thing, almost verbatim, from 2022 to 2023, almost verbatim. So we watched those videos before. We knew what they were going to say. We knew how to counter them. Now, unfortunately, out of that January committee hearing, the committee ended up retaining the bill. So they didn't kill it or anything. They were like, all right, we're going to talk about it again in October. So that kind of gave us 9 months to build some more grassroots support. We ended up going to a bunch of different GOP committees, your local town GOP or county GOP meetings. We got, a few different towns to submit resolutions of endorsement for the bill, a couple counties to do resolutions of endorsement, American Legion. We got New Hampshire ACLU to endorse this bill, as well as the House Progressive Caucus in New Hampshire and the House Freedom Caucus in New Hampshire. So pretty much the Liberty Republicans, which is about 100 out of our 400 state reps, are part of the Freedom Caucus. And then there's about 30 Democrats that are part of the Progressive Caucus all coming together to support this bill. So we got a lot of support. We also started doing petition drives, getting people to do online petitions, asking the committee to support the bill. Tons of calls, emails. And then one thing that we also did was canvassing. We went to the districts of the committee members, and we just started knocking on doors in their neighborhoods. We had literature that told people what the bill was about, as well as a QR code to submit a petition to the committee. So we did a whole bunch of stuff, and we've been getting a lot of support. And then we just had last week that retained committee hearing. There was some miscommunication. I'm not sure exactly what happened. The chairman of that committee wanted to have another round of public hearing. Myself and Representative Tom Mannion, we reached out multiple times to make sure that it was actually going to be a public hearing. And then we get there, we've packed the room. There's probably 50 people in support, and ends up not being a public hearing. It ends up being a work session. From there, we were able to get some members of the public to kind of give their test. The opposition, they said the same things that they said before. We did counter them again, and the committee. Well, actually, Tom, who serves on the committee, he asked one question where he was like, "Those in the room who support the bill, please raise your hand." And every single hand in the room shot up. It was beautiful, and I think that probably did sway some votes. But we ended up ending that committee with a 10-10 ought to pass. So what that means is that there's going to be no recommendation from that committee, which rarely ever happens. It's rarely ever that a committee is split right in half. It was 8 Republicans, 2 Democrats against 2 Republicans, 8 Democrats. So it's going to go to the House floor with no recommendation, but because it passed 10-10 on an ought to pass motion, then the default motion on the House floor is ought to pass. So that's the first thing that the House is going to be voting on, and that should be coming up first or second week in January.
All right, so if anybody's interested in helping out getting that to pass, whatever it means in New Hampshire, like who should they be calling, and where can they go with Defend the Guard to either maybe kick in some financial support, or to make some calls or do something like that. And particularly, I guess anybody who's a veteran in New Hampshire, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, so go to the defendtheguard.us website. There you can do a number of things. You can sign up for the newsletter so you know what's going on. You can get involved with phone banking, and we'll reach out to you to let you know if there's an upcoming phone bank, not just for New Hampshire but for other states too. And then from there you can also donate as well. I think we're probably going to get my contact information up on the New Hampshire page too. So if anyone needs to get a hold of me, they can easily do so. I'm pretty easy to find. I think if you just search my name, Derek Proulx, on Google, I'm like the first thing that pops up, and you can message me on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I'll always respond to people who are looking to get involved and help out. But yeah, really the fight right now is, especially for those in New Hampshire, well, really anywhere, is number one, just talk to people about it. 99% of the people that I talk to think that this is the most spectacular bill in the world, and they can't believe that we're not already, like most people are like, wait, we haven't declared war? What's going on? Like, I thought that's what we're supposed to do. Most people really don't understand that we've been doing things very, very wrong for the last 81 years. So like most people that you talk to are going to love this bill, especially if you talk to veterans, specifically global war on terror veterans. They kind of really understand what's going on here and the consequences of just the AUMFs and just 20 years of warfare unending. So just talk to people, talk to your friends and neighbors, and then specifically in New Hampshire, contact your local state rep and tell them to support the bill. New Hampshire has 400 state reps. It's like one state rep for about every 3,500 people. Most state reps list their personal phone number on the State House website. I like to joke in New Hampshire that you can go to your local grocery store and throw a loaf of bread across the grocery store, and you'll probably hit a state rep in the head. They get paid $100 a year. State reps are very responsive to their constituents in New Hampshire. That's just the way it is in our state. We have such a large legislature, very high access to government. So state reps respond to calls, emails, especially if you see your state rep out and about, stop them for a second, hi. And then I would also ask, if you do get I am going to vote for this bill, make sure you thank them. And then, hopefully come January, with enough pressure, it is already looking pretty good. We're probably not going to get recommendations to vote either way from either party, meaning that state reps will just vote their conscience, which is good because, like I said, most people actually really like this bill. So just letting the reps be people instead of be politicians is probably going to have a good outcome. But really, it's just, like I said, call, text, email, state reps, talk to people about this bill, and get the word out.
All right, Derek. Well, I mean, thank you so much, first of all, for all the work you've been doing in New Hampshire. I think as you kind of lay out there, it's really this is a great way to bring up the conversation with people. There's a piece of legislation behind it, so there's something happening, but it opens the door to talk about U.S. foreign policy in general. And when people really talk, as you mentioned, people think there was a declared war. I remember when I was in, I think, middle school. My teacher asked when was the last time the U.S. declared a war, and this was um, maybe just after 9/11. And so all my, no, it was probably a few years after the Iraq War had begun. And so all my peers were like surprised that, the U.S. didn't officially declare war for Iraq, Afghanistan, and you actually got to go all the way back to World War II to find a declared war. So, now 20 something years later, this is probably even more astounding to people than, it was to us back then. So, really important things to talk about. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, just those who want to get involved with the things like Defend the Guard. Don't be afraid to talk to people outside of your normal group that you talk to. Like you would think, like, oh, I do a lot of work with libertarians, Republicans. They're the only ones who really care about these things. No, everyone cares. The 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 Democrats. They really care about these things. Republicans, libertarians, everyone. This is not a very partisan or one-sided issue that you can't reach either side. Um, just always work with anybody to do good. That's Ron Paul. One of his methods was the single issue coalition. And that's where we can get a lot of things done, especially in regards to United States foreign intervention, is these single issue coalitions, because most people are sick and tired of the foreign interventions. Most people, not politicians in DC, maybe not. But it's definitely a grassroots effort. You need to be talking to people. We are like it certainly is. Defend the Guard certainly is an uphill battle. Like, we are pushing back against the largest and most violent organization in the world, to the United States Department of Defense, and they have a lot of sway when it comes to politicians. So you just need to define a different way with the politicians. It's not going to require logic and reason and showing them the statistics of what's the consequences of U.S. intervention. It's going to require grassroots effort, right? The calling, the emailing, pressure from constituents, the door knocking. That's the kind of effort that it's going to take. Informing people about these things, posting on Facebook and Twitter, retweeting, whatever, or X as it's called now, right? Reposting. That's good and all, but that's not going to sway the politicians. The pressure is really going to come from the real grassroots stuff, the door knocking, the calling, the emailing. So I definitely highly encourage people, especially if they want to help out with this, to try to not do as much of the social media stuff, and to really do the really grassroots, on the ground efforts. It takes like a couple minutes, not even, to write an email, and that can have so much impact on your local representative's decision when it comes down to this bill.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, New Hampshire, these are just, everyday people. But again, I think this issue is so important because it does seem kind of non-threatening to people's like overall ideology too. You're just saying, if this war is important, let's declare it. And then, that creates a whole bunch of other debate that a lot of times the war isn't declared because if it came to a vote in Congress, it might not pass, or Congress definitely doesn't want to sign their name to it. So if they're going to commit our soldiers, they should, at least commit themselves to standing behind the war with their own vote, which so often doesn't happen. I mean, I know you say it's an uphill battle, but Defend the Guard has had so much success. I remember when I first heard about this legislation, the 10th Amendment Center was kind of picking it up. I'm not even sure if there was like bring our troops home.us and defend the guard.us, but Damn It Night and Diego Rivera are just such well spoken and committed, to this issue that I'm sure it's going to keep moving in the right direction. So, Derek, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if something big happens in January, I'll definitely have you back on.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.